Good evening. It's after 7 and we'll call this meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission to order. And I'll ask Jamie Lawson to take the roll.
Good evening, everyone. Vice Chair Pennington.
Here.
Christina Meinking.
Here.
Russ Vandermas Peeler. Russ, you're on mute.
Here.
Thank you. Josh Adkins.
Here.
And Wendy Geis. She's having difficulty with her computer. I'm seeing her in the chat. Wendy, if you continue to have difficulty, you may want to just, you can keep your video on, but you can call in. So let me try also unmuting you. See if that will help. No. Okay. You've got the phone number? Okay. And Brian, Lori is also coming in now too. So while we're doing this roll call, we might as well wait for her to log in and see if Wendy is able to come in as well.
Great.
Hey, Lori. We're in the process of roll call. So Lori Bryant. She says she's here. You're on mute.
I'm
okay.
here.
All right. And Wendy Geis is here while she's working out her technical difficulties. So we have a quorum. We're ready to go.
Great. And Chair James Eulis has asked for an excused absence. He's not able to be here. So is there a motion to approve the chair's absence?
Second.
Christina, motion from Christina. Russ seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Make sure you take your, sorry to interrupt, guys. Make sure you take yourself off mute when you're doing the roll, when you're speaking your voice votes. And also remember to state your name when you're making the motion.
Right.
So that's a unanimous.
All right.
Excused absence.
All right. The next order of business is approval of the minutes. Are there changes to the minutes from the November meeting? Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I move, Lori, to approve the minutes.
A second.
Russ, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Brian, aye.
Any opposed? Any absences to recuse?
Abstain.
Thank you.
All right. The minutes are approved. We have one COA on the agenda this evening. It is from Kim and Jerry for roof replacement at 602 West Davis Street. So Jamie, is there a staff report?
Yes, I'm just working behind the scenes here with Wendy. Wendy, are you the 919 number? Okay. I'm promoting you. I should be able to. All right, I'm allowing you to speak, Wendy.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Great.
Hear me now? Okay.
Yep. So stay on that way. And we'll see you, but also hear you now. Okay. I do see that there's a hand raised by Giselle. So I'm gonna just Vice Chair, if you don't mind, I'm just gonna allow this person to speak to see if they have a question about something. Otherwise, we'll get to the first item. So Giselle, you now are unmuted.
We can see everybody, but
Hello.
Yes. Do you have a question?
Hi. I'm trying to log in for my husband. So Jeff is the one that's going to be on the meeting. So, but we just could not log in with his credentials. So that's why you see my name, but actually it's Jeff that is going to be taking from here.
Okay, what's your Jeff what?
Mitchell Roofing.
Okay, sir.
Oh, great. Thanks for being here.
All right, so we'll keep you in here because we're going to be calling on this case now, but we're going to follow the proper procedures here. So go ahead, Brian.
Is there a staff report on item 3?
No, I don't see it.
Yes, I've got the staff report. Let me get to it. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And okay, so and I'm also going to promote Mr. Eddie Pitts, who I believe is just listed as Pitts, or I'm sorry, Eddie, into as a panelist here. So he's also on the item. Okay, so on the screen, you should see my staff report. So staff received a major COA from Mr. and Mrs. Pitts for a roof replacement. The reason why it's considered a major COA is because the roof repair is of materials that are not consistent with the original materials of the property. The staff report includes the relative findings of facts. There's also a report from a structural engineer pertaining to the damage that has been done as a result of the roof leaking. So you'll see significant damage internally in the property, in the house. Mr. Pitts has also included some sample of the asphalt shingles that he's looking to replace the existing, I guess is a combination of concrete and tile, slate. But I'll let Mr. Pitts speak momentarily. I did want to also mention that the information that I'm providing to you is the truth to the best of my ability. So you've got the staff report, you've got the findings of facts. Typically staff would love to see replacement of existing materials as like, but due to the damage that's being being caused as a result of the roof, and in speaking with the structural engineer who prepared the report earlier today, our understanding is that the weight of the roof as it exists now is very problematic. So we are making a recommendation to replace the roof. I would like to call on Mr. Pitts and any of his representatives to come on and describe the application in any more detail. So Mr. Pitts, are you able to turn on your video or?
I don't know why I can see you guys, but I can't see me.
Okay.
Can y'all see me?
No, I can see you.
I see, there you are,
I'm on
Mr.
an iPad, but I don't know how to turn the video on.
All right. Mr. Mitchell, the way that we normally, I'll let the vice chair run the meeting, but we normally call on folks. So I'm trying to see if you can start your video, but I don't see that. Well, in any event, Mr. Pitts, good evening. Do you swear that the information that you're providing to the HPC is the truth to the best of your ability?
I do.
Okay, great. Do you want to supplement any of the information that I've provided?
Yes.
Okay.
Just sort of a recap, so everybody has a clarity of what is going on with this piece of property. Of course, originally it was built in 1910 from the purchase of the Sears robot catalog order. It was originally a 2-story, 3-bedroom, 1-bath frame house with a cedar-shaped roof. In 1926, Alan Moore, folks around him called him Pete, he purchased the property and did a major renovation where he completely surrounded the the existing house with brick and put a brick portico over there for his Packard to be parked under. And then he installed a new roof system on top of the existing roof system that this house was originally built for its weight. But what he had installed was these are clay. What are these, Jeff? Clay tile.
Concrete.
Anyway, what? and
As a
how-
concrete tile.
It's a concrete?
Yeah.
All right, so what we have, and see how it's laid, from what I've been told by Jeff, is that you have to lay, when you lay this on the roof, it has to be laid like 3 layers, just like this. And when you measure or weigh a square foot of this on a roof, this is like 12 pounds per square foot, where an asphalt shingle is about 2 pounds per square foot. Now, normally this would have been great, but after almost 100 years, the weight of this, excuse me, the weight of that is now causing the house to collapse, not only from the inside, but also from the outside as well. Now the roof's been leaking for years. I mean, I've patched it for a long time, but when it started getting the structural problem, that's when I said, well, I can't speak for myself, but I can speak for the house. You know, the house literally needs a burden lifted off its back, you know, but that's why I had an engineer to come in and take a look at it. And of course, through the years, I've installed steel beams in the basement because of the way the floors were bowing inward. I've, tried to preserve it as best as I can. That's why on the front of my house, I've got an HPC Preservation Award that the Burlington City Council awarded me and my wife back in 1999 when we brought this property back up to the glory that it is right now. But as it stands right now, my roof is killing me. So far as, I just can't stop the leaks, and the weight is what's perpetuating the whole thing, in my opinion. So that's why we're asking to have the tile removed and put new asphalt shingles down.
Great. Jamie, can we swear in Mr. Mitchell?
Yes. Mr. Mitchell, do you swear that the information you're providing to the HPC is the truth to the best of your ability?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great.
So, Mr. Mitchell, what would you add to what Mr. Pitts has shared?
Well, certainly the main thing he's, committing to, and understanding is the house has been overbearing by the weight that it wasn't designed to take. So that weight must come off, and we must put a lighter material on unless structural integrity is built. There's no other way unless you restructure the home, on the rafters and all the way down. So it just can't take weight. It wasn't built for it.
Great. All right. Are there questions from the commission?
While Mr. Pitts was speaking, I'm sorry, I was flipping through some of the pictures that were included in the packet. So if there's anything that you want me to go back to, just let me know.
Like this one right here. So that's kind of concerning when you go in your attic and you see that your supports are buckling. Of course, that was a 2 before, but back in those days, a 2 before was a 2 before, but it's it's not designed to hold the weight after 100 years, like Jeff was saying. It's the unfortunate thing about it is that insurance doesn't cover this. So this is like a $22,000 renovation that has to be done, in my opinion. It needs to be done. It has to be done to keep this property in the.
Well, if I can butt in a little bit. There's no other way. You can't put a light system back on that house with the right mind, knowing that the structure is going to get worse if you do that. There's no other way to do what we're doing as far as any heavyweight system. You've got to go with a lightweight system. And obviously, the shingles, are the best option in this case.
Christina, did you have a question?
I did, thanks. Mr. Pitts, this is Christina Meinking. I'm just wondering if you could share with us a little bit more about the types of repairs that you've had to do already on the roof and over what period of time you've had to do them.
Good question. It probably started around 2000. I was having some leak problem on the back side of the roof, on the back side of the house. And so I went to the HPC and they referred me to a gentleman out of Greensboro, and he came down, bless his heart. He was almost retired, but he climbed up on the roof and he showed me how these tile were laid and that some of them weren't right. And so he did what he could to repair that particular leak. Well, then over time, a few years later, all of a sudden the roof started leaking in the front part of the house, like in the over toward the gutters and whatnot. So I had to go to Greensboro to a roofing company, roofing store there, and get some roofing caulking called NP1. That was the only caulking that would stick to some of this material out here. And so every time I'd find a hole or something, I would squirt it with some caulking and it would take care of it. Well, I've been doing this for pretty near 20 years. Well, I about got the whole dang roof caulked in certain places if you used to take a look from the top side looking down. But that's the only thing I had to use was caulking to, stop a leak here, stop a leak there. And now it's just where I can't stop it. It's just coming, it's coming everywhere now. It's coming through the walls. It's coming through the back side of the house again, through the ceiling. But it's just, and my concern is the mildew that's inside these walls now, over in the carport side where the water's coming through now and popping the paint off. That was a spare bedroom that we very seldom used, but once I got that's that front right corner of the house. Once I got peeling the wallpaper off, I had all this mildew on there, and so I had to get rid of that. You can see where I've got some stress cracks right there on that side. But I can't, and I don't want to do any repair inside until I get the outside done, because it doesn't make sense to fix the inside if the outside's still going to present the same problems.
Thank you.
Are there other questions? You said, Mr. Pitts, that the original roofing material was cedar shake shingles?
Yes, sir. They're still inside you go up in the attic, they're still inside the roof right now. And there's holes cut through the existing roof system where you can step through and go out to the dormers of the new system where the new dormers are placed out in the front now.
You can see it from the attic if you were to go up there.
Yeah, it's an interesting piece of property. It's how they've done that thing. But like Jeff said, when they put that roof system on there, it was a design. I mean, the concrete in the basement wasn't poured thick enough for that weight. That's why there's a picture that Jamie's got that shows down in my basement. This is one. I don't know if you can see how that round crack is right there, but this is how far these posts have started, sinking in the basement. And so that's when I had to turn around and put up some steel beams, so forth. What do we do that? You've got those steel beams. Yeah, there we go. So have you ever had a door in a house that wouldn't stay open? It always shut, Well, several of mine was doing that way, so I had to install steel beams in the basement to shore the floor back up, so the doors would stay open instead of having one close every time you wanted to. So I've done the best I can in the last 25 years to not let structural things happen, but I'm getting to where now I'm just saying I need to take this old weight off, like Jeff says, and come back and still keep the preservation of this property.
Jamie, is there anything else from the structural engineer you think the commission should hear?
Well, the report that he prepared is included in the packet here. So I sort of think that speaks to itself, as well as the pictures. When I had the opportunity to speak with him today, I'm just rotating this around as I'm going here. Basically, he said to me that in his opinion, the only alternative would be to replace the roof with as these guys have already mentioned, with a much lighter weight roofing material, because replacing the roof with like kind would not only not fix the damage, and it would not fix the leaking problem, but it also would not fix the structural issues that are occurring. So he really didn't have any other alternative except for the lighter weight material.
And what are the proposed asphalt shingles?
I switched over to that, the sheet, the picture that you've provided, Mr. Pitts. Do you want to go into any more detail pertaining to this?
Well, after consulting with Mitchell Roofing, that we were trying to get a light color, obviously, to what is already on the roof now. But if you showed that slide 17 that showed the color of the exact the tile, it's kind of hard to come up with a light gray, moldy green color. So they came up with the Georgetown gray or a black, which you've got, I think the Georgetown gray on top of the house on up from me on Davis Street at the corner of Central and West Davis, that brick house, which our design and theirs is pretty similar architecturally speaking. They've got a gray, but all the other structures around me are black. The roofs are black. Even the new McDay Museum that they're building over there, a rental building, they put a black roof on that. So I'm okay with either color, whichever you guys, if you prefer one over the other one. To me, gray would reflect less heat than a black one would, but
Is there any further discussion or questions from commission members? Jamie, do we have any communication from the public on this application?
Haven't received any emails or calls. There are a number of people who are on the line, and what I would ask, if there's anyone in the attendees list who's interested in speaking on this application, you can use the raise hand feature by pressing *9. Also, if you're on the call. So I'll just give it a minute to see if anybody has a question. I'm not seeing any hands raised.
Is there a motion on this application from commission members?
I'll make a motion to approve the application.
So Wendy Geis moves to approve the application. Is there a second?
I'll second Russ.
All right. Any further discussion? Jamie, do you want to take a roll call vote?
Do you want to discuss the findings of facts
Oh, yeah.
first?
Can we please introduce the findings of fact?
So in the staff report, there are, let's see, six findings of facts. Typically, James will read those into the record and then ask if there's any discussion or any additional findings of facts to include.
Great. So C51, original roof forms, pitches, rafter details, molding, trim, and soffit boards should be retained. C52, roofing, historic roofing materials such as clay tiles, slate, standing seam metal, wood shingles, or embossed metal shingles should be preserved if feasible. C53, raising or lowering the roof pitch or removing original features such as dormers, turrets, balustrades, barge boards, quarter round, cornices, brackets, weather vanes, or lightning rods are not allowed. C54, features such as dormers or balustrades may be added if they are appropriate for the style of the building. C55, deteriorated roof covering should be replaced with new materials that are compatible with the old in composition, size, and texture. After reestablishing the structural stability of the roof, replacement roofs should be dark in color. White or very light shingles are not permitted. And C56, specialty roofing materials such as mission tiles or pattern slate should not be replaced with composition shingles. Are there other findings of fact?
The only thing I could bring up on that is when you talk about the lightning rods are not to be removed. Is that what I'm hearing?
That is in the historic design standards, yes.
Eddie, what is your thoughts on leaving those lightning rods up there? Aren't you, and I may be mistaken, man. You guys got to understand, I look at 40 houses a week sometimes. So am I right by saying you got lightning rods?
No, I have no lightning rods.
Oh, okay. My
I'm
bad.
good.
Are there other findings of fact anyone would want to introduce? Is there a motion to approve the findings of fact?
I'll move to approve the findings of fact.
I think that's Wendy moves to approve. Is there a second?
Lori, second.
All in favor?
I'll do a roll call.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Pennington,
Aye.
Christina Meinking,
Aye.
Lori Brine,
Aye.
Russ Vandermeer Peeler,
Aye.
Josh Adkins,
Aye.
and Wendy Geis.
Aye.
Great. The findings of fact are approved. There's a motion on the table to approve this application. Is there any further discussion or questions from the commission members?
I would just ask if there's any preference in terms of the color so that we can make if this is approved, we can make the COA clear. If the commission doesn't have a preference, that's fine. But if there is a preference, we'd like to include that.
I do not have a preference.
I don't have a preference either.
I would
No
say based
preference.
on the argument that Mr. Pitts put forward in terms of similarity, architectural similarity to other recently re-roofed homes in the district, the gray would make sense, but I have no deep opposition to the black.
Yeah, I would agree.
Mr. Pitts, do you have a preference that you want us to include?
Well, I like black, but my wife likes medium, that gray. So I kind of want to go with the gray then, I guess. I got to stay there another 20 years, good Lord willing. So I don't know that one on my back. But y'all say black, and I'm clear. I'm good. You know. No, gray's fine.
All right.
Brian, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, so if there's no further discussion and there's consensus that we'll recommend historic gray, is Jamie, do you want to do a roll call vote?
Sure. So there's a motion and it was seconded.
Yes, I think
Okay.
it was moved by Wendy and seconded by Russ.
Okay. So roll call would be Vice Chair Pennington,
Aye.
Christina Meinking,
Aye.
Lori Bryant,
Aye.
Russ Vandermest Peeler,
Aye.
Josh Adkins,
Aye.
and Wendy Geis.
Aye.
Great.
Motion is approved. Thank you, Mr. Pitts. Thanks, Mr. Mitchell, for being here.
Yes, sir.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jamie, do you
So-
want to do your usual thing?
Yeah, I will. So I will process your paperwork. So you'll get your approved COA and I'll have a yellow card, yellow placard for you. You'll still need to apply if it's necessary through the building department for any further permits. And once that's approved, make sure you get the yellow card. It'll be available here that you can pick up from the planning department and have that displayed while work is being done. So everyone's aware that you got your COA. That's it.
Thank you.
You're
Great.
welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pitts.
So you're,
Yes,
I'm
Mr.
gonna,
Pitts, thanks for everything you've done to keep the house. Yeah,
Oh, you're welcome.
You've
We
done to
love it. We
preserve
love
it.
the house. You know, I just hate to, spend this kind of money on it, but hey, it is what it is. So thank you for approving it though. I just appreciate it so much.
All right, our next item of business is new business. Is there new business?
well, let me do one thing before we get to that. Let me just make an announcement for anyone who is on the call for 303 South Fisher Street that that applicant has requested for the item to be pulled from the agenda. So we will not be hearing that item. If the applicant decides they want to come back, they can certainly do that. But at this point, we will not be hearing any request on 303 South Fisher Street.
Thanks for that, Jamie.
Okay. So now we can move on to new
Is
business.
there new business?
Yes, we have the first item up would be, it's a quick item. I sent you all an email this afternoon. There was correspondence pertaining to the Aurora Mills property that you guys recall was designated a landmark site. There's been a request to have that property considered for National Registry nomination. So we've received correspondence. Essentially, it gives us notice for being on notice for response, I think within 60 days. And I will, so the information is just provided in the packet for you as an informational item right now. We'll have this more formally at the next meeting in January, where most likely the HPC will have to take some sort of formal action or make a motion to recommend or not. But we just got this today, so it's exciting that the applicant is pursuing that. And I think it's a great next step for that property and its revitalization. So stay tuned on more information about that.
Great, thanks for that. It's really good news. I haven't even seen the email myself yet. But really good news on that property. Are there any questions from the commission? Discussion? Great. Under other business, we have 3 items, and the first one is the memo that is in the meeting packet about the local historic district amendment. Jamie, do you want to introduce this?
Yes, and I am also attempting to promote the Robinsons and I believe Mr. Gant as panelists. So hopefully they will come in as well, as they are involved with this request. I see Mr. Gant. And let me see. Mr. and Mrs. Robinson, can you hear me? Okay, I see that you've come in, and so I'm going to introduce this item. Again, the information and testimony information I provide, not doing testimony on this item, is the truth of the best of my ability. Included in your packet is a staff memo. So this is not a procedural application. This is a procedural item in accordance with our Unified Development Ordinance. So as you may be aware, staff received a request for properties to come out of the local historic district. And in accordance with our Unified Development Ordinance, there's a process by which we have to follow. And so essentially, the short of the long is an investigation report was prepared for this area. It's four properties rather, 1004, 1010, 1016, and 1022 West Davis Street. Those properties have been included in an investigation report that is included in your packet. We are asking for the HPC to consider a motion to forward this report to the state for their review and 30-day review and recommendations. So there's no formal action that would be required at this time regarding the report. We're not going to be discussing the report and its merits. We're here just strictly to ask for a procedural action to occur. So the report can be forwarded to the state. Once the state conducts its review, then we would have the item back in front of the HPC. We would renotice and have the item back in front of the HPC for the consultant to be here to answer any questions and present the item and for testimony to occur. Both Mr. Gant and the Robinsons, I believe, are on the call too. So at this time, we're not going to take any testimony, but if they'd like to just introduce themselves, we'll be happy to have them do so. So, Mr. Gant, do you want to say anything?
Yes, good evening. My name is Alan Gant. My wife and I live at 1022 West Davis Street. Her name is Denise Clark Gant. And we're here representing the properties.
Hi, Ms. Robinson. Would you like to introduce yourself as well?
Yep, Emily Robinson, and got Patrick right here.
Hey.
And we live at 1004 West Davis Street.
Okay, great. Let's see. There are a number of people that are on the call, and I think we could ask if there's any comments before I ask for another formal motion. If there's anybody who would like to ask any questions, procedural questions. Mr. Gant, you raised your hand. Do you want me to call on you?
Yes. It's
Okay.
my understanding that we were not taking comments tonight.
I just want to make sure, since we gave you the opportunity to introduce yourself, if there's anyone from the public that has just questions procedurally on this request. We're not going to talk about the report or any merits on the item.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raised. Again, if there's anyone on the call who would like to ask any questions pertaining to the procedural aspects of this, please raise your hand. Brian, I'm not seeing anyone.
Okay, great. So our
Oh, I
job,
do see one now.
would you like to recognize them, Jamie?
Sure. Michelle Kay, you have the ability to speak if you'd like.
Am I unmuted? Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Michelle Kobrick, 715 West Front Street. Just the timeframes, what you expect, how long would it take, or do you estimate it to take to come back from this state?
So, excuse me, so procedurally, the state has up to 30 days to review and make a recommendation.
Thank you.
And so we can anticipate this after forwarding this report to the state, that they'd get it back to us in 30 days, and that we could schedule this item back on the agenda for the following Historic Preservation Commission meeting.
I think we'll have to, that would be one option. Yes, we would definitely want to confirm with the applicants their availability before we do any scheduling. So I think once we get the information back from the state, depending upon when that occurs and our deadlines, that'll give us an idea of when it could be held next. Staff would then confirm with both the applicants on their availability. So that will dictate when it will be heard, and then we'll renotice again. We sent out letters to property owners within 300 feet of this for this meeting, and we'll do the same for the next meeting. And just to kind of close the loop in the process, the Historic Preservation Commission would make a recommendation, but ultimately, that would go to the Planning and Zoning Commission as well for recommendation, but City Council would be the body who would hear and make the final call on, because this is considered, a zoning district. Even though it's an overlay, it's a zoning district. So it's a legislative matter that gets considered, and final consideration goes to the City Council.
Are there other questions from members of the public who are on the call, commission members, procedural questions?
I seem to recall that the HPC itself had an opportunity to write a report or even craft an addendum to the consultant report that would also then go to the state. Has something shifted in that process, or is that still a possibility for us?
No, that's definitely on the table in terms of how you want to handle your part of the process, whether it be, and this is something that we can talk about in more detail, whether it be an addendum, whether it be a cover letter to supplement the investigation and the report. That will be up to you in terms of how you want to handle that.
We chose to add something to be determined. What would the timing need to be on that for it to align with the process as it's currently slated?
I didn't hear the first part of your question. I'm sorry.
If the commission did decide to add a document of some sort, right, whatever that might be, what would the time frame need to be on that? So like, when would we need to decide whether or not to add something? And then when would it have to be written and sent to the state? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, my feeling is you now have the report that was prepared by the consultant, so you have the information pertaining to that. Once you get the comments back from the state, you'll have information pertaining to that. My feeling is, and we can talk about this further, whether or not you want to have a subcommittee to work on a cover letter or separate addendum. But I think that would follow suit in terms of, when it comes back to the HPC for the consideration to work in that timeline.
So it's not in this first. My understanding was that it would be
not
in the
part
right
of this
alongside
tonight.
the consultant's report.
So
Right.
Okay.
Am I correct? We are simply referring this to the state today. When we get the report back from the state, then the commission will look at the report and have the opportunity to forward it to the city with its own addendum report. The report actually comes from the commission.
That's correct. There's
Correct,
no,
according to
no-
the statute.
no supplement occurring at tonight's meeting. We're not discussing the report or your, anything else further. Your recommendation and I'm looking at Christina and you look like you have another question.
No, I guess I thought it was, I do not mean a recommendation. I want to be very clear about that. I thought that the HPC had an opportunity to file its own report in addition, separate from how, not as an evaluation of the consultant's report at the same time or in the same time frame that the consultant's report went forward. So I don't mean to suggest that we are making any commentary or recommendation about the report or the request or any of it. I just thought we, as an HPC, could have the opportunity to write our own report that went to the state next to, adjacent to, alongside the consultant's report. So that's where I seem to have misunderstood, but
And I have understood that we will have that opportunity according to the statute when this comes back from the state. When we submit a report to the city council.
So I just want to make it sort of just clear it up a little bit. Our staff has engaged with a consultant who has prepared an investigation report in accordance with the UDO. It is our recommendation that the HPC takes a look at that report and provides any additional information that you'd like to in terms of, an addendum or cover letter, but to keep things moving and in a timely fashion. We're not recommending that the HPC prepare a separate report above and beyond what we've got currently. So if there's, if that's something else that you want to discuss, we'd like to hear from you, but we've entertained a consultant who has prepared a thorough report that's in front of you right now.
Jamie, if I may.
Sure.
Yeah, everything I swear is, even though we're not doing a testimony right now, Conrad Almeida, planning manager, I think, right, Christina, for to answer your question and to echo what Jamie's saying right now is before your report that's been prepared, that is the de facto Historic Preservation Commission's report. The state's requiring us to have that report come from the Historic Preservation Commission via a motion and an approval. And then that gets forwarded to the state for their 30-day review. And I believe what you're discussing is a supplemental edition that can be looked at the same time with the recommendation from the state. And that's what I'm gathering. And that in terms of the timing of your supplement or your addendum. So I would see them occurring concurrently. So this gets sent to the state during its 30-day, they get their 30-day review. The commission has the report. You all can do your analysis, your addendum. When we meet back as Jamie has indicated, when the applicants are available, we'll come back, we'll reconvene. And at that point, a recommendation will be put forward. Then that will go to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and then it will go forward ultimately to City Council.
So you're suggesting, Conrad, that we take this report back, we take the state's recommendation and package that and forward that on.
Correct.
Comes back. So in order to keep this process moving, it would seem that the commission would have to be considering its own assessment in the meantime. if this
That's
were to
correct.
come back in 30 days in time to get it onto the agenda for the next meeting. So Jamie had suggested the possibility of a subcommittee of the commission who might work on this in the interim. I'm unfamiliar with what the process might be for naming such a committee and how that work could proceed.
Well, I'll take a look at the UDO, and make some recommendations separately to the HPC. We would want to avoid having a quorum of the subcommittee. So there would not need to be more than 3 members of the subcommittee. I'm just spitting this off the top of my head. If there's more guidance in the UDO, I'll outline it to you guys. But if that's the choice of the HPC to have a subcommittee to review the report and prepare something separately.
And so would that be transparent?
In terms of you'll see all of the meetings and all of the future activities of this item, will certainly be noticed and advertised. And then the HPC would, again, I'm just speaking off the cuff here, but the HPC would present its item findings, additional information to include at the meeting, which would be a public meeting.
So you're telling me that the subcommittee would be a public meeting and we would be able to comment?
No, the subcommittee isn't necessarily a public meeting. If they're not having a quorum, then it doesn't have to be noticed if it's a separate entity. It's a work group essentially that would be reviewing the document and then reporting back to the entire group in terms of their suggestions and comments.
And so would the property owners be invited to that meeting?
No.
It's a work group for the HPC. So,
but any report the subcommittee would prepare would be included on the agenda of an HPC meeting.
Right.
Vice Chair Pennington, if I might add, and also to address Mr. Gant's comments, we do not want to have an issue of quorum and appearance of doing any research or analysis of this document outside of the public spectrum and the public realm. So might I suggest, in lieu of a subcommittee, if you will, is for each commissioner to read the report, do their own analysis, forward any comments to staff. Staff can then consolidate those comments and then provide that to the commission ahead of time before the meeting, of course, where both the state's comments as well as the HPC comments will then at that point be reviewed. That way we would avoid any appearance of any third party or ex parte communications. Even though this is a legislative item, you are a quasi judicial board. So we want to respect that and avoid any appearances of quorum conflicts or any non-public transparent communications amongst the commission.
When the recommendations come back from the state, what precisely is the commission's role?
If I may, so at that point, we will take keep in mind, the state may not comment on this. We give them a 30-day period. So we're going to assume that they're going to give us a comment back. At that point, at the 30-day expiration, staff proceeds forward with the scheduling of this item for your all's consideration. And that would be, we want to make sure the Robinsons and Mr. Gant are available to be at that meeting, of course. So I'm speculating come unlikely January's meeting, but hopefully in February, we'll be able to present this for you.
And when it is presented to the commission, what is the commission's, what will you ask of the commission specifically?
We will be asking for a recommendation to approve or not approve the request.
the request and the
Mhm.
report.
Similar to what we request for a rezoning request to the Planning and Zoning Commission. It's a similar motion.
Similar to the landmark designation that you
Correct.
guys had to make a motion to recommend the landmark designation, it would be similar to that, but that went through the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council as well.
So that is a simple approval or denial on the commission's part.
It's a recommendation, sir. Mhm.
I'm going to belabor the point. I'm really sorry. I just want to make sure that I'm 1000%.
You're fine.
In terms of how and when the HPC has some voice of their own in this. I think that's what my main concern is. And I feel like over these many months, right, we've been in different states of flux with that. And I hear and appreciate what Jamie and Conrad have articulated this evening. And maybe this is a question for the HPC then, as much as it is a question for process, but are we, if the HPC were to craft an additional document or an addendum, are we comfortable doing so with only the consultant's report? Or would it also be beneficial to have the state's response? And I heard you, Conrad, saying that they might not even respond, but what are the contextual factors that we want to make sure that we address in making a recommendation of any kind to City Council? So like, what is the fullest picture, the most evidence, the most information we might have at our disposal before we are making a recommendation that, right, has an impact moving, or, you know, I don't have an impact, but, you know, that before it goes to that next stage.
Were you
Well,
asking the commission or staff? Sorry.
Everybody, I'm feeling philosophical on this Tuesday evening. So I guess it's a process question and a philosophical. I don't know.
So the process
where we
that
are.
staff has outlined is that the motion would be made to forward the report to the state so that the state would have the opportunity to review the investigation, and that you then would have the benefit of hearing the consultant who prepared the report present the report to you, have the state's feedback or not as well, and then you be able to make your own recommendation with those things in consideration, as well as any other information that you'd like to include.
So I think that was my question. Is it simply a recommendation? We recommend, or is it, as you just suggested, Jamie, a recommendation with rationale?
It's very, so the language is very vague in terms of the statute pertaining to the recommendation. And so it can be, my opinion, you know, I'm not an attorney, but my opinion is that it can be a recommendation, or it can be a recommendation with other considerations included. It's really, you know, the HPC's report that will get forwarded. So it can be in any context. We're offering some guidelines in terms of that and some parameters to help frame it as well.
Jamie.
Mr.
Jamie. Yeah. I mean, my understanding is, having chatted with you all about this on several occasions, is that the recommendation from the HPC will go to the Planning and Zoning Committee, and they will in turn make a recommendation to the City Council. The City Council will then make the final decisions whether they accept or reject whatever recommendation is given to them. So, I mean, it looks like to me that HPC will make a recommendation to the Zoning Committee, which will then go to the City Council. I think it's reasonably straightforward.
What does the statute actually say do we have, like, if that language is embedded in the report, I've missed it, or if it's someplace else easily accessible, that might be helpful to look at in terms of,
the state statutes, Commissioner, or the
Yeah.
Unified Development Ordinance?
maybe
State stat-
both.
Yeah. Hmm.
Which one?
This, I think she's asking for both. And I can pull up the UDO pretty quickly because that's kind of at my fingertips here. And then the state statute would take a couple more minutes to be able to pull up, but well, just bear with me.
Oh, Jamie, I'll see what I can do with the state statute if you get the UDO up.
Sure. So I'm going to share my screen again. And so we're in this section of the UDO that's 319 E, and then we go down. I might have skipped over it. I'm sorry, it's not this section. Hold on. Okay, here it is. 319 E 2. C, it talks about designation or amendment procedures to the LHO.
Mhm.
So this is where it talks about the HPC shall prepare an investigation report describing the significance. And the city forwards that report to the state. That's the 30 calendar days. And then essentially council shall review the report and make a decision in accordance with the rezoning process. That rezoning process basically is the Planning and Zoning Commission makes a recommendation to city council. So it's kind of not included here specifically, but that's how it's outlined. So the UDO isn't specific in terms of, what does the HPC have to do in terms of making the recommendation or not, what that language has to say. Does that help at least frame this portion of it?
Yes, it does for me.
Christina, I don't, you've maybe on mute now, but
Yeah, I accidentally clicked out, I think.
that's okay.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
So it makes sense, I guess. And I heard what you said about the recommendation being, or the guidance being that the consultant's report sits or stands in lieu of an HPC generated report, right? Which would be in that CI part.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So then I guess the question is, where outside of the recommendation that we make to planning and zoning, what opportunity do we have, and when, and with what information, to write anything even vaguely proximate to our own report? If
So-
that's,
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Brian.
I believe I see two opportunities. So just looking at the statute here, one is at this point when the report is going to the state, the consultant's report is going to the state. And the second is in the context of making our recommendations to the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council when we have the report, when presumably we have some response back from the state. Jamie Conrad, do you think that is accurate?
Yeah, I think it's staff's staff's opinion that the response would be when the item goes to the planning, the second option, that when the response would go to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a recommendation and City Council.
Speaking for myself here, I may want to have the opportunity to review anything that comes back from the state before crafting language from the HPC that the city would see. But I'm happy to obviously hear other discussion and listen to other opinions.
Makes sense to me as well. I think the question then becomes like, how does that affect, what is the timeline, right, that HVC has to write something that is not a recommendation, but write a more properly a report based on everything that we might have at our disposal.
So
go ahead. Sorry,
so would seem to require, and I'm posing these as questions, would seem yeah, go ahead, Conrad.
Sorry, Vice Chair Pennington, Commissioner Meinking, appreciate all the discussion. Right, what you have before you is the report that was prepared by our third-party consultant to provide an objective analysis of the request. That report needs to go to the state for 30 days per our UDO. So before I just want to tell you that what we need is the state needs us to have this report come from the Historic Preservation Commission. So let's keep that as the goal of the motion that we need to address the questions of the voice and the ability to comment. You can start working on that right now. You all have the report. You can do a draft. You can include the comments from the state when they come, if they come. And after that 30-day review, staff is going to coordinate with the applicants to put this on the agenda, at which point you'll be able to provide an analysis, provide your own comments, provide your own written comments. As my suggestion earlier today is for you all to take the time from today to the time that up until the very final moments that we're taking this back to the Historic Preservation Commission to send your comments to staff. Staff will then be able to consolidate that into an addendum to the report that has been created by our consultant. That would be my recommendation. It's in line with the process that we've laid out for our applicants. It's the process that the senior administration is aware of. The timeline is, we want to avoid any further, not necessarily delays, but we're pressing to make sure that the state has its 30 days review, while also respecting the time that the HPC needs to or would like to have your own individual comments and analysis done for the report. And I want to make sure that this report's not necessarily anything less than what we would think the commission would want to present. Our UDO requires that an investigation report be created, and staff went forward with that to be created by a third-party consultant, so that it was, again, objective in its analysis.
So the alternative to that would seem to be to name a subcommittee that could work in the interim while this report is at the state, with the idea that we not extend the process any further, so that when the report came back from the state, there would be some set of recommendations or rationales from the HPC already in process, so that we can move this along to the city in an expeditious manner. So it seems to me those are two possibilities that might be before us. I'm really unclear about how a subcommittee would be appointed and how that work would
No.
proceed.
Vice Chair Pennington, I recommend to not have a subcommittee on this matter. I think we would run into issues of transparency. We would run into issues of possible quorum, and in lieu of that, I would encourage you all to provide your individual comments to staff, and staff will consolidate those comments apart from any kind of subcommittee action. Amongst the commission, of course, the commission members.
So we'd only run into the problems of quorum if we were to have more a subcommittee greater than 3, right?
Jamie's nodding her head, so correct.
Yes, yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I thought I was speaking, but I guess it wasn't anything coming out. Yes.
I guess I see the value in individual comments, but I don't see how individual comments that are then collated represents a consensus that is agreed upon or come to by the commission as a whole or subcommittee of the commission. And I'm not in any way trying to suggest delays. That's absolutely not my intention. And my concern really is what voice the HPC has.
The voice is a collective of all of your voices, if I may. In an abstract concept, each commissioner has your own voices, so you'll be able to comment when this item comes back before you all. You'll be able to provide your own input, your comments on the request, and then each one of you will need to take a vote to recommend approval or not approval. If I can answer that question as best as I may, in terms of how a commission or a board acts in a sense as a collective unit, but also still individually.
I think, in terms of crafting some sort of HPC, when you use the term owned report, right? Just populating a document with individual responses to or comments on the consultant's report and what we get from the state doesn't suggest to me a holistic, there's no discussion there, right? It's just like however many people we are individually throwing something out there.
Pardon to interrupt, the discussion would occur at the public meeting that we would schedule for this item when it comes back to the commission.
But aren't we as a commission supposed to make a recommendation to the zoning and planning committee?
At a later date, correct.
So but isn't that what we're talking about, preparing? And I agree with what Christina's saying, is if we're just giving individual thoughts, then that doesn't come together as a formal recommendation from the entire committee. Because what happens if people have conflicting thoughts? Then how do you then suss all that out and figure out what the recommendation is? I don't understand the mechanism, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. And the matter is we want to allow the commission to have time to provide an addendum to this report that has been prepared. My recommendation is to not have a subcommittee because that could have a conflict of quorum. And we would need to have those meetings legally posted, and they will be public. So if you wanted to work with staff, we'd be more than happy to arrange those, and they would all be public meetings. The alternative is to not have any kind of quorum conflict. The idea here is to allow the commission to avoid any perception or any conflicts of transparency here in its preparation for this item.
So are there parallel commissions that have worked with subcommittees for the city in?
Not for individual rezoning requests, no. We don't
You
do
guys
that.
had a subcommittee at some time, which I'm trying, this is what I'm trying to find, and thank you for Conrad for trying to field some of these questions while
Mhm.
I'm researching it, but I'm not able to find it so quickly. You guys had a subcommittee that was the
design
review,
committee?
yeah, design review committee that, and then I don't know how long it's been abolished or not utilized, but you had that ability at some point. So was just trying to find the bylaws and the parameters associated with that to offer some guidance in terms of kind of mirroring that as and making that suggestion in terms of if you were to want to go the that route.
But Jamie, as I understand it, nothing happens until the commission sends the report to the state. And so that has to happen first.
That's the first step, yes, regardless of the what composition the HPC wants to provide feedback on. The initiation to the state is the first step. So that is really what we're asking for tonight, so that we can get this moving, is a recommendation to move the investigation and report to the state for their review and consideration for within that 30-day period.
And might I add, and since it's of strong interest to have additional opportunities via, for lack of a better word, a subcommittee, staff can look into that matter and provide you with some expertise after this. We would want to consult with our attorney, our city attorney, on the matter. But that apart from the motion that staff is presenting forward, I think is a separate issue.
So I just want to be clear on one thing. I think we've been talking here at various points about HPC addenda to the report, but the statute actually calls for the report from the Historic Preservation Commission. So I would read that as asking us to prepare a report in which the consultant's report might be embedded.
That's fine as well. I mean, I don't think that we have an issue in terms of, I would see the combination of the HPC's input and the consultant's report as a consolidated report together.
And I would see the possibility that the commission's report in which the consultant's report is embedded could be pretty, in theory, could be pretty simple. It could be a cover letter. But it has always seemed to me from the statute that this report should come from us and not from a third party. And I think one of the things we're trying to talk through here is what the mechanism for making that happen should be.
I'm thinking about what you said, and staff has looked into what the statutes and what the UDO require. And the Historic Preservation Commission report in our UDO is that says it shall prepare an investigation and report describing the significance of the buildings in section 3.19 E2 C Roman I. And what the report you have before you, for lack of a better word, it is that Historic Preservation Commission report. That report contains historic preservation experts that are beyond the expertise of staff and arguably members of the Historic Preservation Commission. With that, it is not a creation of your all's collective minds. And there's a reason for that. It's because if you all were to start to prepare this report, it's likely we would have some of the issues we're facing right now about subcommittees, about quorum issues, about transparency, and about public noticing. In fact, it would probably be very difficult for the commission to draft the report without that level of public engagement and transparency, as well as just a matter of technical expertise that was above and beyond the call of staff. So with that said, that is in fact what we would consider the report that is coming from the Historic Preservation Commission to consider this request of amending the local historic overlay district boundary, which the statutes point to is being treated as what we would call a rezoning process. It's the similar procedure as a rezoning. It's different than a typical rezoning because this commission doesn't consider any rezoning requests outside of the district. The rezonings are going to our planning and zoning commission, and then they go forward with a recommendation to our city council. So this is very different in that context. And so what we are doing is you are de facto acting as a legislative board, as a body of legislative. You're acting like a planning and zoning commission. How that plays out is that the state has its procedures, the statutes, and they have a requirement that any changes to the district, the local historic district boundary, be presented to them in the form of a report. And that is this report. And then they get 30 days to provide a recommendation. It's pretty standard procedure. Now, that's this portion of the procedure. How the commission creates its own addendum or companion that then is coalesced with the report, this third-party report that then goes to the Planning and Zoning Commission, then goes to council, we can further discuss. So that way there's no, we're abiding by the law, and we're avoiding any perceptions of ex parte communications on a matter that's a rezoning request. With that being said, I would encourage the commission to make a motion to forward the report to the state, and then staff can reconvene with vice chair of the Pennington, and as well as Chair Eulis, as far as how to coordinate the HPC to provide a supplement to that report. Thank you.
So what Mr. Almeida is proposing is that we refer this report to the state, and that I believe he and Jamie will consult with city attorneys and then with the chair and vice chair of the commission about the mechanism or structure by which the commission could craft something that would constitute its own, that would constitute something in its own voice that would be included in its recommendations to the city when this comes back from the state. Is that correct? Is that how I understand your question? Are there questions or discussion from the commission on that proposal?
Does staff have a sense of how long it might take to get that clarification, in keeping with our theme of being time sensitive? My one concern I would have is what time frame does that leave whatever mechanism exists for HPC to collectively craft a report? Once this consultant's report goes to the state, right, we trigger that 30 days and off we go, and nobody wants any further delay in process or any delay in process. So is there a sense of when you might be able to share with the commission, after consulting with the city attorney and checking any additional statutes or whatever else, how we might move forward, since time is of the essence?
Yeah, I mean, I would say give us a week to 10 days to be able to get some feedback. We'll probably get something with some guidance to you less time than that, but we'd like to be able to share something with you, probably in a memo format. Does that sound reasonable? I'm seeing some
Yes,
heads
it
nod.
sounds reasonable to me.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead and let's get the report sent to the state.
All right, so there is a motion to refer the report to the state. Is there a second?
Second, Russ.
All right. Is there further discussion?
So that was motion by Lori and second by Russ.
Yes.
All right, I'll do roll call then. Vice Chair Pennington,
Aye.
Christina Meinking,
Aye.
Lori Brine,
Aye.
Russ Vander Peeler,
Aye.
Josh Adkins. You're on mute, sir. Can you want, yep. Aye, is that aye?
We got an aye, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And Wendy Geis, please.
Aye.
Okay,
Motion
right.
is approved, so then the commission will wait to hear from Conrad and Jamie on that, but the report will get forwarded to the state.
great. Thank you so much. Thank you for your input and conversation on this as well.
Thank you.
Jamie? Jamie?
Mr. Gant?
Yes, sir.
Sorry. Yes, Brian. So if any of the new council members would like to take a walking tour of the property, I would be most happy to have Jamie give me a call, and I'll be glad to arrange a time to meet them on the property. I think there's several new faces who have not seen the property close up, and happy to do that in complete transparency.
I believe commissioners present have been.
I think maybe all but one was in attendance of the site walk. We do have minutes from those meetings, from that meeting, I'm sorry, one meeting available as well. So thank you for that offer, Mr. Gant.
Thanks, Mr. Gant. Thanks, Mr. and Mrs. Robinson.
Thanks for your patience while we discuss this process as well. We appreciate it.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda under other business is minor certificates of approval of appropriateness update. Jamie?
Yes, so there were no minor COAs included in your packet for this month. You will have some for the next meeting.
Great. And then CLG training?
Just as I normally include, just as a sort of catch-all to make sure you guys are continuing your education. I forward whatever information I get from Christy Brantley at the state. We are obligated as a CLG municipality to continue our training. We just submitted last month our annual report to the state, which is a normal kind of document that summarizes the different activities that have gone on in the year. So we just presented that and included all the training that we all have participated in. So I'll just continue to forward those opportunities as they come on, and make sure if you're participating to summarize them and sharing. Mr. Gant and Ms. Robinson, I'm going to take you off panelist now since your case is over. But like I was saying, sorry. if you are participating in the training sessions, make sure to just include staff when you send your summary to the state, so we are aware of it.
Yeah. I thought that was a raised hand, but I think it was an animal's tail. The trainings that I've attended for the state have all been very good, very useful. So for new members of the commission who've not yet had the opportunity, they're really useful chances to learn about the state and historic preservation. I believe I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Lori seconds.
Right, it is 8:31. Thank you very much, guys.
All right. Thanks, all.
Thank you
Yep.
all. Have a great
Have a good evening.
Christmas and New Year's.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep,
Everyone
happy
have a great
holidays.
holiday.
You
And Merry Christmas,
take care,
everybody.
everybody.